As you've all seen, this is an amazing cast for the film, and we're very excited to have them here. So without further ado, please help me welcome Google Batharam. Go on in. Thank you all so much for being here today. Congratulations on the film. Bill, I'm going to start with you. You know, the animated movie is, for so many people, their favorite film of all time. So when you approached adapting it for a live action, sort of what was the process for you?
Get over the terror first, I think, you know. But then, you just start with that basic idea. You're going to take it into a new medium, which is live action. They're going to be actors. Emma's going to be playing a character on real locations who has to fall in love with the beast. So all the behavior, which is, let's face it, an animated film is sort of, a little more exaggerated. It has to come into reality. And that, once you start to investigate that, then you realize, wow, there are questions maybe you never asked before that you want to know about. How did Belle and Maurice wind up in this village where they're outsiders, and that leads to then new songs, and suddenly you're creating something new.
Yes, we had these discussions. For me, sorry, you can't answer the question. When Bill came aboard, we had meetings about what would we add. One of the things we talked about, the music box, Maurice, and getting to the backstory of how Maurice and Bill came down, and backstory for the Beast, how he became such a cold and callous young man. Also trying to root ourselves much more in time and place, 18th century France.
Well, Alan, working off that, this is one film of a myriad of films that you've contributed amazingly to. I mean, it's sort of impossible to capture how much you've given people, with the work you've contributed to these films over the years. And I'm curious what you think it is about them that makes them such universal stories for so many people.
I mean, all of them?
Just, you can talk about this one. Let's go one by one. We're going to start that.
I mean, when I first came to Disney, I got to say, I thought of Little Mermaid, first and foremost, as Howard Ashman and my follow-up to Little Shop of Horrors. We were still working in, for me, it was working in musical theater. These off-Broadway guys coming and bringing our skills to Disney. I think we don't calculate beyond telling the story and serving the characters and trying to give each of these projects its own unique musical stamp. And beyond that, it's just storytelling. And there's no more collaborative form than musicals. So, they call it musicals and I'm the composer, but the truth is, it's a director, it's a choreographer, it's a lyricist, it's a book writer, it's a composer, it's an orchestrator, it's an arranger, it's a lighting designer, it's everything put together. So I think I benefited a lot also from the Disney Association.
Absolutely. The films in general really speak to children in such a wonderful way. And Audra, I'm curious, as a parent, what do you like about what this Beauty and the Beast says to kids?
Many things, but one thing that was really important to me, I said yes the minute that Disney called, because you say yes to Disney calls. They told me that, you're going to sell churros in the park. I was like, yeah! But knowing not only did it have this incredible creative team, but that Emma Watson was going to be Belle, and knowing how much Emma has affected girls of my daughter's age, and my daughter is someone who now asks for people to donate money to charities for her birthday gifts instead of presents, and that's because of you, Emma. And so knowing full well that Emma was going to make sure that Belle was somebody who was independent, who was strong, who was educated, who was sticking up for girls and women, and who does all the rescuing in the film. That's why I knew it was going to be important for me to be a part of and for my kids to see.
Absolutely. Well, Audrey brings up an excellent point. I mean, you become a role model to so many young girls and women all over the world, and I know that growing up, Belle was someone you sort of looked up to. When you sort of began to sort of make her your own, what were sort of the things that you thought about in modernizing Belle?
You know, it's just to start. I mean, it's really remarkable to play someone that I'm almost sure had an influence on the woman that I've become. I think, you know, I think the first time I saw Paige O'Hara saying Belle Reprise, you know, it's kind of the I Want song of all I Want songs, and I just immediately resonated with her. You know, I mean, I was so young, I didn't even know what I was tapping into, but there was something about that spirit, there was something about that energy that I just knew she was my champion. And I think when I knew I was taking on this role, I wanted to make sure that I was championing that same spirit, those same values, that same young woman that made me a part of who I am today. And so, you know, every time we would address a new scene that Bill or Steve or Evan had put together, you know, I just kind of went, I just always had the original DNA of that woman in mind, and I would, you know, and I had my fists up, you know, I was ready to fight because she was so crucial for me, and you know, it was just taking what was already there and just expanding it. And I love that in our version, Belle is not only, you know, kind of odd and doesn't fit in, and you know, you see her reading, and you see her not really a part of the community. In our film, she's actually an activist within her own community. She's teaching other young girls who are part of the village to read, and you know, moments like that where you could see her expanding beyond just her own little world and trying to kind of grow it. I thought I loved that, and that was amazing to get to do.
You know, I think in bringing this to life, one of the probably the biggest challenges would be creation of the beast, because you know he's such a huge player. The physicality has to be so intense and large and specific. And I mean, I think the film does an amazing job, and Dan, you do an amazing job with that as well. And I'm curious, sort of, when you approach that, you know, there's so much there. You know, there's the face and the costume and the height. But I mean, did you approach playing him any differently than you would sort of, you know, any other character you've played?
Well, it was a very physical engagement. I think just to support that muscle suit on stilts was a challenge that I never really encountered before. I've definitely been taking a more physical approach to my roles in the last few years and just training myself in different ways. I think with the backstory, we decided that the prince, before he was the beast, was a dancer, that he loved to dance, and so I trained myself like a dancer and learned, you know, 3 quite different dances for this movie and worked very closely with them. Just in terms of the, you know, his general deportment, both for the prince and the beast, you know, there was a lot of work dancing in stilts, and getting to know Emma first and foremost on the dance floor was probably, you know, I think it's a great way to get to know your co-star. I'm going to try and do it with every movie I do now, whether there's a waltz in the movie or not. No, I mean the trust that Emma had to place in me that I wouldn't break her toes, and also it really became part of the, you know, that's the crucial part of the title really, and the bit, you know, and that sort of the essence of a waltz being 2 people in this whirlwind, you know, and learning about choreography really, storytelling through dance, not just getting into dancing, but actually, you know, really telling a very crucial part of the story and that big turning point. So yeah, also physicality.
You know, when you have the title Beauty and the Beast, there is someone trying to keep those 2 apart, and Luke, that is Gaston. Someone once said that, you know, villains never think of themselves as the villains in the story. They always think of themselves as the hero, and I'm sure that's especially true of him. I'm curious, I mean, what did you sort of clue into in his past or in building the character that made him more than a villain to you?
Well, I just think a villain shouldn't start out as a bad guy. A villain should end up being the bad guy. And I think with Gaston, outwardly, you know, to a lot of people in that village, he is the hero. He's a bit of a stud. He's got the hair, he's got the looks, he's always impeccably dressed. Not a bad singing voice. He's got a great pal who makes everybody, you know, support him and sing about him. And I wanted the audience to, in a way, I just thought, let's make them like him a little bit first. So that when the cracks start to appear, which they do very subtly, even from the door slam, you know, there's something inside of him that he's like, I'm not used to this. This isn't how it goes, you know, this is not what she's supposed to be doing. And although he keeps believing that Belle will change her mind, that's where the cracks appear in my thought process. And then slowly, you know, the jealousy takes over and who he becomes, especially Gaston, as opposed to other Disney villains. He has no book of spells, he has no magic powers. He's a human being, and he uses his status within that village to rouse a crowd, and he does it all from just being himself, which is quite terrifying in a way. And so I played on that. I played on the humanity of the character as much as he was larger than life. There was a lot to pull on, and obviously he was a war hero of sorts. We decided, didn't we, Bill, from the past? That's why his murals are all over the pub that he drinks in. And there is a slight soldier, this animalistic soldier in him when he finally fights the beast on the rooftops. You see this man out for blood. And it's a scary moment to see the arc of somebody who was the lovable buffoon of the village to become the actual beast, almost the monster.
Absolutely. Josh, we've seen you on Broadway, we've seen you in other musicals. We know you're very adept at singing and doing comedy. In this film, you get to ride a horse. How was the horse back riding for you?
Can I get an obvious question? I'm going to get comfortable for this. So it's interesting. I learned a couple of great lessons on this movie. One of which is that Jews don't belong on horses. Specifically overweight Jews. My horse was an anti-Semite. Interestingly enough, they would call action. And the horse that they told me was trained for this movie, but I believe they found in the wilds of Luke and I, our first entrance into the village of Villanova was to, this picture, by the way, is going to be so out of context. Like, what a schmuck for sitting like that. But I have very short legs. So Luke and I are walking into the village on our horses, and on action, all our horses need to do is walk side by side. It's so simple. Luke's horse does it. The two of them worked on The Hobbit together. Have this incredible background.
They share a trailer.
They share a trailer. Mine is a cold-blooded killer. He proceeded to moonwalk. He walked out. Then he ran through multiple extras in the village. Ran around, I didn't even know it was possible, but ran through these like pillars, around, up and back again. I heard cut, and I heard laughing. And the laughter was coming from the horse's trainer. And he came up to me and goes, "I'm so sorry, I've never seen this happen before." And it was so sad. It made me feel so awful about myself. Ironically, my horse's name was Buddy. He's nobody's buddy. I'm getting Disney to press charges against him. And I've told my agents to never send me another script with a horse in it. Lessons on. In the sequel to Beauty and the Beast, I drive a DeLorean.
I like these ideas. Well, I'm glad you're safe in here with us. you know, one of the most impressive things I think the film pulls off is it makes you really empathize and care about these inanimate objects. You know, I mean, they're not inanimate, but they're objects. And for me, I think one of the most emotional moments of the film is when the curse is taking them over at the end and you're watching them say goodbye to one another. I mean, doing the voice work with that, I mean, how do you inject so much emotion into something, you know, into a feather duster?
Yeah, I mean, it was an interesting challenge, and I was so obsessed with the original Disney film. You know, it came out when I was 8 years old, so I was kind of really excited to be a part of this. And for me, it was, you know, working on the French accent. You know, both myself and Ewan had the same dialect coach, and then just playing in the studio with Bill, encouraging us to, you know, embrace that sort of inner child and that real sort of let's pretend kind of freedom. And for me, you know, having done a few serious roles that year, you know, to be able to embrace the feather duster, Plumette, and to also be able to really not be limited by your own face and your own body, that you can really, as I say, just play, was so joyful. And then again, when we all got to, you know, be on set for that transformation sequence, and all these legendary actors are there, and, you know, to be swirling around that Disney ballroom, it was just really, really magical.
Absolutely. We're going to open it up to your questions in a minute, but before we do that, Bill, I have one last question for you. There's been a lot of talk about the sexuality of the food this week. How do you feel about that?
I'm gonna go use the bathroom.
Yeah, I talked before about how you translate this into a live action. That means filling out the characters. It's also a translation to 2017, you know? And what is this movie about? What has this story always been about for 300 years? It's about looking closer, going deeper, you know, accepting people for who they really are. And in a very Disney way, we are including everybody. I think this movie is for everybody, and on the screen you'll see everybody. And that was important to me, I think, to all of us.